Hi there. What are you guys doing here? It's not Monday. It's not time for a tutorial. Well, I guess since you're here, we can film the most requested video that I get. Dun 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 dun! Let's film a sewing room tour. Hey everyone, welcome to the OklaRoots YouTube channel. Today's video is not a tutorial, but I think you're gonna be okay with that. I get emails, comments, messages on Instagram and Facebook almost every single day asking for this one thing, this one video, a tour of my sewing room. And I have been promising you this video for months. Most of you are in the same position as me where your sewing room might not be the tidiest room in your house, and if you think about somebody coming in and filming it, you probably would want to clean it up just a little bit. But just a little bit can mean a lot bit. You know what I mean. You know what I mean. So I finally picked up my sewing space to the best of the ability, and today I'm going to walk you through all the nooks and crannies of this space. I'm going to show you how I organize all my tools, my fabrics. One thing I want to note is that my sewing room is a work in progress all the time. A lot of the things you're going to see today will probably change over the next few months. I'm constantly tweaking and adjusting and changing based on what I need. And I'm going to tell you guys some of those things as we go through the space, kind of what I'm planning on changing in the future. Also, I don't want this to be the type of video that makes you feel like you got to go out and spend a bunch of money and buy a bunch of things to make your sewing room look good. In our house, DIY is a big deal, and we usually only purchase furniture and items like that if it's just more affordable to do that than building it ourselves. I will tell you where I get everything, but my biggest tip to you is just work with what you've got. Create a space that makes you happy. I have a lot of white background in my space because that makes the things that I buy kind of shine on that white background. But if you're not into a white background, don't go buy a bunch of stuff to make a white background. My hope with this video is that it gives you some ideas of how to organize or decorate your space, and it gives you a better idea of the things you do like and the things you don't like. So if you're new to the channel, please consider clicking subscribe down below. If at any point you like this video, please give it a like. Any questions at all, leave them down in the comment section of this video. Shouldn't be very long. I'm going to do my very best to walk you through all the things. But you can see there's a lot of bins, there's a lot of space. We're not going to dive into all of that. However, I will tell you later in the video when we will be diving into all of these bins. So keep an ear out. All right, let's get started. So this is my sewing room. We're gonna start in the center and then we're just gonna work our way around the perimeter of the room. This here is my cutting table. The tabletop is actually from IKEA. The base was actually built by my husband. He just got some pieces of wood and built it for me. I couldn't find a base that was high enough. When I'm cutting, I need a higher table so I don't hurt my back. I noticed that if it's just even an inch lower than this, I start getting really bad shoulder and back pains. So this is the perfect height. On top of the table, I actually have 6 different cutting mats, all different sizes, different colors. This makes it really nice for when I'm filming a video. If I have fabric that just doesn't quite work with a black background or a white background, I can throw in a pink one and then it's much easier to see the colors on it. You can see on the side of my cutting table right here, we actually put a shelf. This is from IKEA. This is just a wall shelf, a unique design. We tilted it to the side and then just angled it slightly so that it could hold up all my rulers. These big rulers can be difficult to store, so this is a great way to do that. So these cube bookcases behind me in the videos, these are from Target. They're cubicle cases of 2 by 3. I put them up on their sides so that they're standing on the shorter sides, and then we just have 3 of them behind me so that I can have 18 little cubbies behind me at all times. I have filled every single one of these with their own baskets. These baskets are also from Target, and this is a great way to really just shove a lot of stuff in that you don't really have a place to put and you need kind of out of sight. Every single one of these is full of stuff. And if you follow me on Instagram, every now and then we're going to have a segment called What's in My Bin, where I take one of these bins, we dump it out on the sewing table, we just dig through it and see what kind of stuff I put in these bins. If you're a bag maker, a quilter, clothing maker, any type of sewer, crafter, you have a lot of stuff. And it's always kind of interesting to see what we all use for our different crafts. Now we can look at all the things that we keep on top of these bookcases. I have these little tins. These are from the Base Exchange. If you're in the military, you know what that is. And at Christmas time, they get these Lebkuchen Christmas cookie tins, and they have a bunch of different, designs and shapes. And so I use those for a lot of sewing storage. I have some decorative flowers behind that I use for photo props. Back here, I have a little bit of cork. I keep some of my favorite pouches on top of here. I have a bunch of these little glass jars. These are all from IKEA, and they're great at storing like a bunch of double-sided tape, my bag labels. I really love buying souvenirs from some of my favorite places like Disney World. If you've been around for a while, you know how much I love it there. And this is such a fun little gondola coffee cup, but not really practical to drink out of, so I use it for all of my little hair clips that I use to keep a bunch of paper pieces together. I always have my favorite hand lotion by me at all times. Since my hands are in the videos a lot, I need to keep them nice and healthy. I get mine from Zape. It's the absolute best. Here we have a random leaf thing, because why not? These little wicker baskets are also from IKEA. They come in a set of 3, and I just put all kinds of random little knickknacks in there. You can see little scraps of fabric, a bunch of hardware, things that I couldn't really fit elsewhere. I have 2 of these giant magnets to hold my pins. I always have my coasters because, you need to hydrate. Here we have an essential oil diffuser, another one of my favorite bags, a couple of Tula Pink notebooks to keep all of my thoughts and dreams in. Back here, I have a couple of smaller rulers that I use pretty often. Behind me is the Bernina 350. This is the cotton and steel edition. It's one of my favorite sewing machines. It's very compact, it's very lightweight, so if I just need to go in another room and sew something quickly, it's very easy to take with me. This is a beautiful mini quilt that was sent to me by one of you, and I appreciate it so much. I absolutely love it. All right, so now we can discuss the wall storage. I'm not going to show you inside every single bin because we really don't have time for that. But these bins are great. The pegboard is from IKEA, and so are all of the little bins. I had not lived near an IKEA when I was in Oklahoma. Now that I live in St. Augustine, I have an IKEA in Jacksonville very close by, and it is very well stocked. So that's why I have mostly IKEA furniture in here. You can see in these little bins, I just keep all of the smaller things. So some of this is pieces for a sewing machine. Here we have some elastic. We have these little blinkers that never, ever, ever stop blinking, and I don't know what to do with them. I don't have a project for them, but I'll find one eventually. Up here, we have my binding babies. These are adorable ways to store your binding for quilts or bags. I'll have a link, obviously, for everything I can find down in the description of this video. Cross-stitching is one of my absolute favorite activities to do, so I have a little mini cross-stitch up there. Over in the center here, this is mostly just bag hardware. Now you can see I used some washi tape to write down what some of these bins are. This isn't holding up very well. It needs to be replaced. And I also change out these bins pretty frequently, so probably labeling them isn't the best idea. Up top, I have some ribbon that I like to incorporate in bags sometimes. Down here are some threads. I like to try out a lot of threads, so I'll buy a bunch of colors and different types of thread just to try them out. And on the last pegboard, we have some of my beautiful Tula Pink hardware, some bag hardware, more bag hardware. You can see a trend here. This is pretty much all for bag hardware, notebooks. And you can see my husband put up these beautiful little lights. This offers a really calming effect in the sewing room, and it's also nice for videos. Up above the pegboard, we have 2 hand quilting hoops and a piece of artwork. I do actually use both of those hoops for quilting when I quilt by hand. They're extremely useful. Okay, so that's the wall that's behind me in all the videos. To the left of me in the videos is actually this big wall of fabric. Now, these are cabinets from IKEA. They're part of the Liatorp line. They're beautiful because when you connect them, they all have like a crown molding and a base that connects to make it look like one large unit. And they all have their own doors. Now, doors are very important to me because I have 2 dogs and 3 cats. I have a lot of animal fur in this house, dust, things like that. I need to keep that out of my fabrics, so these beautiful glass doors really help with that. So in the corner, I have this mannequin here. At one point in my sewing career, I believed I was going to sew clothes, so I purchased this mannequin. It obviously hasn't panned out, so now it's a bag holder. Over here in this little nook is where I keep most of my thread. I try to utilize every single piece of wall space. So on the left over here, you can see I have a bunch of Aurifil thread. And on the right, I have thread for my embroidery machine and most of my Gutermann thread. For bag making, I do highly suggest you use the Gutermann thread. Aurifil is great for quilts. Down below that, I have a little caddy that keeps most of the products from my embroidery machine. A bunch of different stabilizers and interfacings. This is also where I keep my cam snap rivet press. So on the top of my cabinet of fabric, I have these glass jars where I color code most of my scraps. Now, they're all very full and I don't really have room for the basket of scraps that I have waiting to be put away. So I'm going to need to get rid of these very soon. So you can see I color code my fabric. I have my blue shelf, my brown shelf, orange and yellows, and greens. The parts of the cabinet that you can see through the glass are color coded. The parts that you cannot see through the glass are more of a mess. Down on the bottom, I like to buy bed sheets when they go on sale. These work really well for quilt backings and for small projects. On the shelf above that, I have a lot of Christmas and Halloween fabric. Here in the middle cabinet, I have the same color cording system, again, just grouping colors. And then down below the glass is where I kind of put a bunch of other random things. Now these shelves have a lot of waterproof canvas, cotton canvas, just kind of fabric that I don't use too often, mostly not quilt cotton. The third cabinet is my fun cabinet. Now, if you watch the videos, you know I love themed fabric. I love Disney fabric, Star Wars fabric, all kinds of fun fabric. I get it from Backstitch, Notorious, Hapa, all kinds of different retailers. This is where I keep most of that. I also have some faux fur and some flannel. You can see that this is the most full cabinet, and I have plenty more that needs to be put in here. So we're going to have to destash or reorganize. And then back here in the far corner, like I said, I like to use every bit of available space. On the very top, I have some actual hide of leather. I don't have any machines that can actually sew on it, but one day maybe I will. And then this is just where I keep all of my interfacing, my woven fuse, my Decoville, everything, all the different interfacings. This is a great little corner to just put all those bolts in. So then turning from my wall of fabric to right by my window, this is my next area. This is where I do my sewing. This is a smaller table and it holds my sewing machine and just a few knickknacks that I use while sewing. So you can see this is where I keep the sewing machine that I'm using. Currently I'm using the Bernina 770. I have a magnetic pin dish. I have another dish to hold clips, a fabric coaster at all times, a pen, my stiletto, some scissors, and a small ruler. Behind the sewing machine, I have the little Bernina Barbie box that holds my feet. This has a bunch of knickknacks that I use fairly frequently. Again, more little bowls to hold my knickknacks. And down beneath that in this little plastic bin is where I have all of my quilt blocks for the OklaRoots block party. To the right of my sewing table, I have a tiny bit of wall storage here for some cork and a little bit of vinyl. And then I have another bookcase, which we'll look in once again. That contains some overflow fabric, as well as some tools that I use for sewing. And then just to the right of that is my sewing table and the front door to my house, because my sewing room is our dining room. So this is not all of my cork and vinyl. Unfortunately, I don't have room for all of that in here. That has been placed into other parts of the house. I wanted to show you down here, I keep a Sew Steady table. These are custom acrylic tables that have little compartments to hold your tools, and they're custom built for your sewing machine. Now this one is built for my Juki, and it is incredibly useful. I do plan to have one made for my Bernina as well. Looking in the cupboard right next to my ironing board, you can see we have a lot of overflow fabric here. Now these are a lot of pre-cuts that I don't have much use for in bag making, but can be used in quilts. This is also where I keep many of my tools, my marking tools, rotary cutters, filming equipment. This is also where the Juki goes when it's not being used. Like I said, I still have those little German Lebkuchen tins on the right over there. And then there's my serger, which I've used once and it scared me so much I've never used it again. Here is my ironing board. I actually have a large ironing board and I covered it with 3 of those wool pressing mats because the ironing board itself has become warped. I always have a bottle of distilled water for steam for my iron. I use a cordless Panasonic iron. And then I always have various starches on the board with me, as well as a clapper to help push down any seams. Now my sewing room cannot hold all my things. So this is a hallway closet where I keep my giant roll of foam, extra filming equipment. I also have some tubes of vinyl in there. You can see that as organized as I try to be, it's still difficult. The last thing I wanted to show you is not even in my sewing room, but it's in my bedroom. And this is a separate cabinet that holds vinyl, my Cricut Maker, tools for my Cricut Maker, and then a bunch of sewing vinyl. This is pretty much all from my punk broidery. And on the bottom is a silhouette cameo. So there you go. There is a quick tour of my sewing space. I think the video makes it look a lot more grand than it actually is. It is my favorite space in the house though, because it's where I create things. It's where the family comes and feels inspired to create. The things that keep me most inspired in my sewing room are to keep it fairly tidy. I find that as long as it's cleaned up at the end of the day, then every morning I come in here ready to create. Same with everybody else in the house. As you can tell, I really like white backgrounds. Now this is just because I love colorful fabric and hardware and tools, and I love how all that fabric, all those pieces really pop against a white background. I feel like for me, that allows me to really see my material and my options when I'm building something, and it helps me just put it all together much more organized. So some of the changes I actually want to make in the sewing room are my ironing board. I'm not a big fan of the ironing board. I would like it to be kind of part of my cutting table. So we are thinking about changing up the cutting table, extending it a little bit to add a pressing station on it. Another change I'm thinking about making is I am considering getting an industrial sewing machine. I would really love to make some more heavy-duty bags to gift and donate. But in order to do that, I'm going to need a more powerful sewing machine. And in order to have a more powerful sewing machine, I need more space. So the cabinet that is right next to the ironing board, I am thinking about relocating that to another part of the house and putting an industrial machine there. But we'll see. I am not there yet. Also, I just want you to know, it doesn't matter how big of a space you have. My space has been a kitchen table before. My whole sewing space has been a kitchen table, and I have to move it off the kitchen table whenever anybody wanted to use it. It doesn't matter what size your space is. It doesn't matter what stuff or furniture you have. As long as you have it all put together in a way that inspires you and makes you feel happy to be there, then it's a perfect space. So for those of you guys who have been asking for this video, I really hope that you enjoyed this. I hope that this inspired any of you guys to go and organize your space in a way that makes you feel more happy. If you guys have any questions at all, make sure you leave them down in the comment section. I will put links for as much as I can find down in the description of this video. I hope you have a great day and a great rest of the week. Get out there and make something. Bye!